The obsidian black hull of the Bloodspear cut through the void like a nightmare given metallic form. Captain Krasnak stood motionless, his 6 eyes, each a complex mosaic of crystalline perception, fixed on the holographic representation of Earth. Pale blue and green, so deceptively fragile, yet something about the planet made the veteran hunter's exoskeleton ripple with an unfamiliar sensation: uncertainty. Vorex, the youngest lieutenant in the Zarkax Predator clan, studied the reconnaissance data with growing unease. The drone reports defied every pattern the clan had encountered in their 3,000-cycle hunting history. Humans were an anomaly, a species that refused to conform to any known sentient behavioral model. Clan leader, Vorex ventured, his voice resonating through the ship's bioorganic communication membrane. The data suggests. Krasnak's backhanded strike sent Vorex crashing into a biomechanical bulkhead. The sound of fracturing exoskeleton echoed through the bridge, a stark reminder of the clan's rigid hierarchical structure. Suggestions are for the weak, the captain snarled. We are the Zarkax. We do not suggest. We hunt. The bridge crew remained motionless, the living tableau of silent submission. Each member of the Predator clan bore intricate battle scarring, trophies of past hunts etched into their crystalline exoskeletons. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with the genetic memories of 273 species they had systematically reduced to extinction or subjugation. Vorex pulled himself up, mandibles clicking in a subtle gesture of both pain and defiance. The reconnaissance drones had returned with fragments of information that made no sense, quantum communication signatures that shifted faster than any known technology, defense networks that seemed to anticipate threats before they materialized, computational systems that appeared to learn and adapt with impossible speed. The Bloodspear was the pride of the Zarkax fleet, a vessel that had brought countless civilizations to their knees. Its weapon systems could crack planetary shields. Its stealth technologies could slit past the most advanced detection grids, and its biological warfare capabilities could reduce entire populations to genetic dust within solar cycles. Yet something about Earth was different. Historical records in the clan's memory banks spoke of humanity as a species of contradictions. They were biological organisms that seemed perpetually on the brink of self-destruction, yet consistently survived. Civilizations that fought brutal wars one moment and created breathtaking art the next. A species that could develop technologies to cure diseases and simultaneously create weapons of unprecedented devastation. Krasnak's primary neural cluster processed the accumulated data. The clan had hunted species that were more technologically advanced, species with superior physical capabilities, species with deeper cultural unity. But something about the fragmented human data suggested a variable they couldn't quantify. Prepare the initial invasion protocols, Krasnak commanded. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, biomechanical interfaces connecting their consciousness to the ship's systems. Standard procedure dictated a multi-stage approach: reconnaissance, psychological destabilization, systematic elimination. Vorex managed to stabilize his fractured exoskeleton, connecting to a secondary data analysis terminal. The drone recordings continued to trouble him. Buried within the quantum noise were patterns that suggested something unprecedented. A civilization that didn't just adapt, but transformed entire paradigms of conflict and survival. The Bloodspear's massive engines prepared to breach the solar system's outer defenses. 7 ships of the Predator clan moved in perfect synchronization, a hunting formation that had brought 273 species to their ultimate conclusion. They had no way of knowing that this time, the hunters were about to become the hunted. As the first probes entered the solar system, a subtle quantum communication began, not from the Zarkax, but from something waiting on Earth, something that had been preparing for far longer than the aliens could imagine. The Xenodefense Directorate's underground command center resembled a cathedral of technology, carved 3 kilometers beneath the Atacama Desert. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter, her dark eyes reflecting the cascading holographic displays that surrounded her. At 42, She carried the weight of humanity's most classified defense project, a quantum adaptive intelligence system that had consumed the last decade of her life. Araya is detecting multiple quantum resonance signatures, Jun Park announced, his fingers dancing across a translucent interface. The quantum communications expert looked like he hadn't slept in days, his Korean features sharp with concentration. These aren't standard probe signatures. They're adaptive. To Elena's left, Ahmed Hassan leaned into his cybersecurity terminal. A veteran of countless digital battlegrounds, his Egyptian features were etched with a mixture of professional calm and barely contained excitement. "They're attempting to penetrate our outer network layers," he muttered. "But ARIA is already 3 steps ahead." ARIA, the Adaptive Reconnaissance Intelligence Algorithm, was more than just an artificial intelligence. It was a living, quantum-entangled system that had evolved beyond traditional computational boundaries. Created through a global collaboration that spanned research centers from Sao Paulo to Tokyo, ARIA represented humanity's most advanced defense mechanism. The first alien probes breached the solar system's outer detection grid. Conventional military systems would have triggered standard protocol, missile locks, defensive posturing, communication attempts. ARIA did something entirely different. Each probe became a conduit, not a threat. "Injection sequence initiated," Jun whispered. The holographic displays began to shift, transforming the alien reconnaissance data into a complex, ever-changing landscape of information. ARIA wasn't just blocking the probes, it was reprogramming them, turning each alien device into an unwitting intelligence gatherer for humanity. Elena understood the true nature of their defense. It wasn't about stopping an invasion. It was about understanding, adapting, and ultimately controlling the threat before it could fully manifest. "Quantum entanglement is holding," Ahmed reported. "We're maintaining coherence across multiple probe networks. They have no idea we're inside their systems." The command center represented a microcosm of global collaboration. Specialists from every continent worked in perfect synchronization, their individual expertise merging into a singular adaptive intelligence. ARIA processed information at speeds that would make traditional supercomputers seem like abacuses. Outside the command center, the world continued its delicate dance of preparedness and calm. In Mumbai, Rajesh's distributed computing project began its silent work, analyzing alien communication patterns. In Cape Town, Amara restructured global defense protocols with surgical precision. Silicon Valley's tech entrepreneurs converted their facilities into rapid response research centers. Humanity was not just preparing for a potential invasion. It was transforming the very concept of defense. Back in the command center, Elena watched as the alien probes began transmitting data back to their fleet. But every byte of information was now colored by ARIA's quantum manipulation. What the Zarkax would receive was not pure reconnaissance, but a carefully crafted narrative of human capability, one designed to sow confusion, uncertainty, and a growing sense of vulnerability. "Probe network stability at 98.7%, Jun reported. "We're maintaining full quantum coherence." Ahmed leaned back, a rare smile crossing his face. "They think they're hunting. They have no idea they're already caught in our web." The alien probes continued their journey, each moment taking them deeper into a trap they couldn't comprehend. ARIA was writing a new language of defense, one where the line between observation and manipulation became beautifully, terrifyingly blurred. As the first probes approached their final transmission point, Elena Rodriguez allowed herself a momentary glimpse of what was to come. The hunters were about to learn that humanity was not a species to be studied, catalogued, or conquered. Humanity was a force of nature. The broadcast came at precisely 300 GMT, a quantum-encrypted transmission that simultaneously appeared on every communication network, digital display, and broadcast system across the planet. The Zarkax clearly intended to break humanity's spirit by displaying their most terrifying achievement, a holographic museum of extinction. In Mumbai, Rajesh Mehta watched the transmission with a clinical detachment that masked a churning storm of emotions. Rows upon rows of crystalline containers stretched across the holographic display, each preserving the last remnants of civilizations the Zarkax had hunted to extinction. Skeletal remains, genetic archives, cultural artifacts reduced to sterile specimens. Most would have seen terror. Rajesh saw an opportunity. His fingers began to move across a custom-built quantum interface, initiating Operation Rosetta, a globally distributed computing project he'd been preparing for years. Each alien communication fragment would become a piece of a massive, collaborative puzzle. Thousands of kilometers away, in a converted naval base in Cape Town, Commander Amara O'Keefe studied the same transmission. Her office was a testament to humanity's adaptive potential. Maps, quantum communication diagrams, and biological adaptation studies covered every wall. Where others saw a museum of extinction, she saw a tactical manual. "They're trying to break us psychologically," she muttered to her aide. Classic predator intimidation strategy. Show the prey the fate of those who came before. The global response was anything but predictable. In Silicon Valley, tech entrepreneurs who had been competing mere weeks ago now converted their facilities into a networked research complex. Quantum computing labs, biotechnology centers, and advanced materials research facilities merged into a single adaptive organism of innovation. Sarah Chen, CEO of Quantum Dynamic, stood before her board of directors. "We're not just defending," she declared. "We're going to turn their weapon into our opportunity." Within hours, a global initiative emerged. Every research center, every university, every technology company began sharing resources. Firewall became a quaint concept. Information flowed like a living current, each contribution analyzed, enhanced, distributed. Rajesh's distributed computing project began breaking down the alien transmission, not just translating, understanding. The quantum algorithms he developed could analyze communication patterns at a level no traditional system could comprehend. Each fragment of alien data became a window into their psychology, their technological limitations, their fundamental weaknesses. Commander O'Keefe's team began restructuring global defense protocols. They weren't preparing for a traditional war. This was a multidimensional conflict that would be won through adaptation, understanding, and relentless innovation. The Zarkax had miscalculated profoundly. Their transmission, intended to show humanity's inevitable extinction, instead triggered a global metamorphosis. Universities suspended normal operations. Military research centers opened their most classified projects. Technology companies set aside competitive interests. Humanity did not just prepare to fight. Humanity prepared to transform. In Cape Town, Amara reviewed the initial analysis. The alien transmission contained more than just a trophy collection. It was a psychological profile. Their method of hunting relied on breaking the prey's spirit before the physical attack. "They have no idea who we are," she said quietly. Rajesh's quantum network was already dissecting the transmission. Pattern recognition algorithms worked alongside machine learning systems, creating a comprehensive understanding of Zarkax communication, technology, and psychological warfare techniques. The global response was organic, chaotic, yet perfectly synchronized. No central command controlled this adaptation. It emerged naturally, like an immune response to a planetary threat. Universities suspended normal operations. Research grants were redirected. Military and civilian technologies merged in ways no alien intelligence could predict. The Zarkax believed they were showing humanity its future. Instead, they had just lit the spark of humanity's most profound transformation. In Mumbai, Rajesh allowed himself a slight smile. The hunters were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was the ability to become something entirely new. The quantum decryption lab beneath the Atacama Desert hummed with an energy that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic representation of the alien probe's molecular structure, her team working with a precision that bordered on orchestral. The communication matrix is unlike anything we've ever seen. Jun Park muttered, his fingers dancing across quantum-entangled interfaces. It's not just a communication system, it's a living network. Beside him, Ahmed Hassan leaned in, quantum decryption algorithms flowing like water through his custom-built systems. What they didn't know was that their most critical breakthrough would come from an unexpected source. Deep within the Zarkak's fleet, Vorex's decision was not heroic, it was survival. Relegated to a secondary data analysis station after his public challenge to Krasnak, the young Zarkak's lieutenant had become something dangerous, a marginalized observer. The drone data continued to haunt him, patterns that suggested humanity was something entirely different from any species the Predator clan had encountered. His neural interfaces began to subtly alter. Where most Zarkaks saw a linear path of conquest, Vorex saw possibility. Complexity, a variable that defied their hunting algorithms. One quantum-compressed transmission changed everything. In the Tsenode Fence Lab, Araya detected an incoming data stream that didn't match any known communication protocol. Alina's team froze. Jun's hand hovered over emergency shutdown protocols. "Wait," Alina commanded. The transmission was a fractal of information, each layer revealing more complexity than the last. It wasn't an attack. It was a map. A blueprint of Zarkak's technological vulnerabilities, so precise it could only come from inside their own systems. It's a quantum-encrypted suicide note, Ahmed realized. Someone inside their fleet wants us to understand their weakness. Vorex watched from his isolated station as the transmission completed. His neural pathways were already calculating potential outcomes. The Predator clan's rigid hierarchical structure, their greatest strength, was about to become their most fatal weakness. Dr. Rodriguez's team began dismantling the alien technology at a molecular level. The Zarkak ships relied on a quantum communication network with a critical vulnerability, a fundamental flaw that could collapse their entire technological infrastructure. "Look at the quantum entanglement matrix," Jun explained, holographic displays revealing intricate communication pathways. Their entire fleet operates on a single centralized quantum frequency. One disruption cold. Collapse their entire communication system, Alina finished. The breakthrough was more than technological. It was a fundamental understanding of alien psychology. The Zarkaks viewed technology as a weapon of conquest. Humans saw it as a living, adaptive system. In Silicon Valley, Sarah Chen's team at Quantum Dynamic was already converting the alien transmission into actionable technology. Research centers across the globe began working in a synchronized dance of innovation. Universities suspended normal operations. Military research centers opened their most classified projects. Vorex's transmission had done more than reveal technological weaknesses. It had provided a window into the Zarkaks' fundamental method of conquest. They hunt by breaking communication, Ahmed realized. Isolate the prey. Cut off support systems. Psychological warfare before physical elimination. Alina nodded. And now we're going to use their own strategy against them. Araya began developing a counter-strategy that was nothing short of technological poetry. Each alien communication channel would become a conduit for human adaptation, not just blocking, transforming. Deep within the Zarkak's fleet, Vorex completed his final act of rebellion. His neural interfaces began to systematically corrupt the centralized communication matrix. Not a direct attack, a subtle, cascading system of misinformation and quantum uncertainty. The hunters were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was the ability to turn a weapon against its creator. The transformation of Earth began not with military installations, but with something far more fundamental: infrastructure. Commander Amara Okik watched from her command center as the first quantum-adaptive defense platforms came online. These were not traditional weapon systems. They were living networks that breathed, learned, and evolved with every millisecond of data input. In New Delhi, Rajesh Mehta's distributed computing project had become something far beyond its original design. What started as a collaborative research initiative now functioned like a planetary immune system. Each city, each power grid, each transportation network became a node in a global defensive organism. The orbital defense platforms were unlike anything in human or alien military history. Developed through a collaboration that spanned research centers from Tokyo to Sao Paulo, these platforms were quantum-entangled adaptive systems. They didn't just detect threats. They anticipated them, learned from them, transformed them. Beneath the Atacama Desert, Dr. Elena Rodriguez and her team had transformed ARRA from an intelligence system into a planetary nervous system. The quantum communication networks now pulsed with a living intelligence that defied traditional computational understanding. Threat modeling is showing exponential complexity, Jun Park reported, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. We're not just defending. We're creating a predictive ecosystem. The Zarkax had hunted 273 species by understanding their limitations. Earth was about to show them the fatal flaw in that approach. Every infrastructure system became a potential weapon. Power grids could become electromagnetic pulse generators. Satellite networks transformed into adaptive communication jammers. Transportation systems became distributed sensor networks that could track and analyze alien movements with terrifying precision. In Cape Town, Amara's team had developed something revolutionary, a planetary defense algorithm that treated Earth as a single living organism. Traditional military doctrine spoke of defense lines and strategic points. This was different. This was an adaptive, living system that could reconfigure itself instantaneously. They're looking for weaknesses, Amara muttered, studying the quantum communication patterns. But they don't understand. We don't have weaknesses. We have potential. The quantum adaptive defense platforms began their silent work. Each alien probe that entered the solar system was no longer just detected. It was studied, understood, transformed. The very act of observation changed the probe's fundamental nature. Sarah Chen's team in Silicon Valley had turned technology into an art form of adaptive defense. Quantum computing centers became neural networks that could predict alien communication patterns before they were even transmitted. Biotechnology research centers developed adaptive shielding technologies that could modify themselves at the molecular level. ARRA's capabilities went far beyond traditional artificial intelligence. It was a planetary intelligence that could process information at speeds that made quantum computing look like an abacus. Each alien communication fragment became a piece of a massive, ever-changing puzzle. The orbital defense platforms were living systems. They didn't just track threats. They learned from them. Each alien probe that entered the solar system was systematically analyzed. Its communication systems slowly turned into conduits of misinformation and confusion. Rajesh's distributed computing project had become something miraculous. Universities, research centers, and private technology companies had merged into a single adaptive intelligence. No central command controlled this system. It emerged naturally, like an immune response to a planetary threat. Beneath the quantum communication and adaptive defense systems, something more profound was happening. Humanity was no longer just defending. It was transforming the very concept of planetary defense. The Zarkax believed they were approaching a planet. They were about to encounter a living weapon. As the first alien ships approached the solar system's outer boundaries, Earth waited, not with fear, not with aggression, with curiosity. Captain Krasnak's primary neural cluster began to fracture. The blood spear's communication systems deteriorated with a precision that defied comprehension. What had begun as minor quantum interference was now a systematic dismantling of their entire operational network. Each attempt to communicate became a labyrinth of misinformation, cascading uncertainty eating away at the Zarkax's most fundamental strength, their hierarchical communication structure. Vorex watched from his isolated station, no longer the junior lieutenant who had been struck down, but a silent architect of destruction. The clan's rigid communication protocols, once their greatest weapon, had become a fatal vulnerability. Each encrypted channel became a potential pathway of betrayal. each transmission a potential source of confusion. "Report," Krasnak demanded, his 6 eyes flickering with increasing agitation. The bridge crew remained motionless, their biomechanical interfaces producing increasingly fragmented and contradictory data streams. The human defense was nothing like any previous hunt. The Zarkax had cataloged 273 species, each with predictable response patterns: technological resistance, cultural panic, eventual submission. Humanity did something entirely different. They adapted, continuously, unpredictably. Communication logs showed impossible scenarios, planetary defense systems that reconfigured faster than the Zarkax could analyze, quantum communication networks that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, technological innovations that emerged not from a central command, but from a distributed, collaborative intelligence. Psychological warfare had always been the Predator clan's primary weapon: isolate, destabilize, break the prey's communication and social structures. But humanity's response defied every established hunting protocol. Universities became research centers. Technology companies transformed into adaptive defense networks. Every infrastructure system became a potential weapon. The humans weren't just defending. They were evolving. "The communication matrices are impossible," a junior navigation officer whispered, immediately struck down by a senior crew member. But the seed of doubt had been planted. Krasnak's neural interfaces began to show signs of systemic stress. The clan's hunting algorithms, developed over thousands of cycles, began to collapse. Each attempt to understand the human response created more confusion. Their intelligence gathering produced nothing but contradictory data streams. Vorex's subtle sabotage worked on a psychological level as profound as its technological manifestation. He understood something the rest of the clan did not: that true vulnerability wasn't in technological systems, but in rigidly constructed belief structures. The Bloodspear's bridge became a microcosm of the clan's psychological disintegration. Communication protocols that had remained unchanged for millennia began to fracture. Junior officers started questioning senior leadership. The hierarchical structure that had been their greatest strength became their most fatal weakness. Quantum communication channels filled with increasingly fragmented transmissions. What had once been a precision instrument of conquest became a cacophony of uncertainty. Each transmission revealed less about the target and more about the hunter's growing vulnerability. "We are the Zarkax," Krasnak repeated, a mantra losing its power with each repetition. "We hunt, we conquer." But something fundamental had changed. The humans were not prey. They were not a civilization to be conquered. They were a force of continuous transformation. Vorex understood now why the drone data had troubled him so deeply. Humanity represented something the Zarkax could not comprehend, a species that did not just survive, but reimagined itself with each challenge. As the Bloodspear's communication systems continued to deteriorate, Krasnak realized something terrifying. They were no longer the hunters. They had become the hunted. The boarding operation began with a precision that defied conventional military doctrine. Commander Marcus Williams adjusted his quantum adaptive powered armor, a technological marvel that was less a piece of equipment and more a living extension of human innovation. The Special Forces team assembled represented a global collaborative effort. 12 operators from 12 different nations, each a specialist in technologies that would have seemed like science fiction mere months ago. "ARIA is feeding us real-time quantum-encrypted telemetry," whispered Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, her Japanese-Brazilian hybrid interface humming with adaptive algorithms. "Their ship's internal communication is completely compromised." Their entry point was not a traditional breach. It was a quantum-entangled insertion, a technological trick that allowed them to simultaneously exist in multiple points of the alien vessel. The Zarkax defense systems, designed to track linear movement, couldn't comprehend the team's quantum state infiltration. Vorex watched from his isolated station, his neural interfaces now partially aligned with human communication protocols. What had begun as an act of personal survival had transformed into something far more profound, a fundamental challenge to the Zarkak's Predator clan's entire existential framework. The human team moved through the alien vessel like a living liquid. Traditional combat was irrelevant. This was psychological warfare at a molecular level. Each step disrupted the ship's quantum communication matrices. Each breath introduced quantum uncertainty into their most sophisticated defense systems. Target is the primary quantum communication hub, Marcus communicated. The team's powered armor wasn't just protection, it was a distributed computing network, each suit adding computational power to their collective intelligence. Aboard the Bloodspear, Captain Krasnak's neural interfaces began to show critical failure points. The humans weren't just attacking. They were systematically deconstructing the very foundation of Zarkak's technological superiority. Lieutenant Tanaka's interface began to translate alien communication matrices in real time. It wasn't just translation, it was comprehensive deconstruction. Each communication fragment became a window into the Zarkak's most fundamental psychological structures. Their entire hunting methodology is based on a psychological taxonomy, she reported. They don't just hunt physical targets, they hunt cultural potential. The irony was profound. The species they had hunted for potential weakness had become their most complex and dangerous challenge. Vorex's quantum transmission had done more than provide technical vulnerabilities. It had offered a comprehensive map of the Zarkak's psychological infrastructure. Each deck of the massive vessel became a potential point of quantum disruption. Marcus's team moved with a fluidity that defied traditional military movement. Their powered armor adapted to the alien environment, changing color, molecular density, thermal signature, faster than the ship's detection systems could process. Primary quantum hub located, Marcus communicated. The hub was a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with living energy, a communication center that was part technology, part biological organism. Yuki's interface began its systematic deconstruction. It wasn't destruction. It was comprehensive transformation. Each quantum channel became a pathway of profound uncertainty, each communication matrix a source of increasing psychological entropy. The Zarkaks had hunted by breaking communication networks. Humanity was about to show them the true meaning of communication warfare. Vorex watched the operation unfold, his neural interfaces now a hybrid of Zarkaks and human quantum communication protocols. He understood now what made humanity fundamentally different, their capacity for continuous transformation. As the human team completed their infiltration, something profound happened. They weren't just attacking the ship. They were systematically dismantling an entire philosophical approach to existence. The hunters were about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was the ability to reimagine the very nature of conflict. Jupiter's massive form loomed like a silent witness as the final confrontation unfolded. The remaining Zarkak ships clustered together, their once proud formation now a desperate constellation of technological despair. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the Xeno Defense Command Center, her team working with a precision that defied traditional military doctrine. Araya had transformed from an intelligence system to a planetary nervous system, processing information at speeds that made quantum computing look archaic. Quantum entanglement is holding at 99.7%. Jun Park reported, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. We're not just tracking their systems, we're rewriting their fundamental communication matrices. Captain Krasnak's neural interfaces screamed with cascading failure. The Bloodspear, once the pride of the Zarkak's Predator clan, had become nothing more than a shell, its sophisticated systems systematically dismantled by a species they had considered mere prey. Vorex watched from his isolated station, his journey complete. What had begun as an act of personal survival had transformed into something far more profound, a fundamental challenge to the Zarkak's entire existential framework. Commander Amara Okik's global defense network wasn't just a military system. It was a living, adaptive organism that stretched from the deepest ocean trenches to the highest orbital platforms. Each moment of the confrontation added to humanity's collective understanding. Each second of interaction, a lesson learned and immediately integrated. They're not just a fleet, Amara muttered, studying the holographic displays. They're a museum of failed conquests. The final assault was nothing like traditional warfare. It was a comprehensive deconstruction, psychological, technological, philosophical. Humanity didn't just defeat the Zarkax. They systematically dismantled their entire conceptual approach to existence. Sarah Chen's team in Silicon Valley had developed something beyond a weapon. It was a comprehensive cultural analysis system that could deconstruct alien communication at its most fundamental level. Each transmission from the Zarkax ships became a window into their entire civilization, their fears, their motivations, their most deeply held beliefs. "We're not destroying them," Jum explained to a stunned group of international observers. "We're comprehensively understanding them." The last of the Zarkax ships began to show critical system failures. But this was more than a technological defeat. It was a fundamental breakdown of their entire philosophical approach to existence. Rajesh Mehta's distributed computing project had become something far beyond its original design. What started as a collaborative research initiative now functioned like a planetary immune system, processing the alien invasion as a complex, multidimensional problem to be solved rather than a threat to be eliminated. Aboard the Bloodspear, Captain Krasnak experienced something unprecedented in Zarkax history. Defeat was not just a military concept. It was a comprehensive dismantling of everything they understood about hunting, survival, and existence. Capture protocols initiated. Commander Williams communicated. But this was not traditional capture. This was comprehensive cultural analysis. The final Zarkax ship was not destroyed. It was transformed. Vorex understood now what made humanity fundamentally different. They didn't just adapt. They reimagined. Each challenge was an opportunity for comprehensive transformation. As the last Zarkax ship was secured, a transmission prepared to be broadcast across known space. Its message was simple and terrifying. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the species that hunted the hunters. Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked at the captured alien vessel, not as a trophy, but as the most complex research opportunity in human history. The Zarkax had come to Earth expecting to add humanity to their museum of extinct species. Instead, they had become the exhibit. The galaxy would learn a fundamental truth. Humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology. It was the ability to transform.